Welcome to Research Methods in Computers and Society. So this is our Unit 3 lectures, which covers Chapter 13 of the course textbook. And our main topic is how to, again, report our results and also discuss our research results. So the chapter name is Results and Discussion. So again, that's Chapter 13 of our course textbook, Results and Discussion. So our main objective here is to write a results section in our research studies. How do we write a results section in our paper? Also, we should describe how to present results in quantitative studies and also explain how to present results in qualitative studies. Also, we should prepare visual representation of results. Examples using a graph or even using a tabular form, tables and figures. Also, we're going to compose a discussion section and how to develop a recommendations section based on methodology or topic. Now, we know that anytime we do a research, our main goal again is to be able to publish our research work in a professional journal or present it in a conference. Or again, give a lectures on it in maybe to our peers in an institution or a workshop presentation. So this section, which is chapter 13 of the course textbook, is we're going to discuss how we can present our results to an audience, either through a journal or conferences, workshop, preparing the articles or the paper to present. And I believe one thing that what the textbook mentioned about the visual representation of results is very, very important. Most of the time when we have our results, we want to present it in a tabular form, in a table or a figures, a graph, just visual representation of data. That's why even most of our data analysis software, always we can be able to generate a tabular form of a result. Most software make it possible. Also generating graphics or charts. Most data analysis softwares make it possible. Example can be an R application, Python, Weka, RapidMiner. Almost all the data analysis softwares make it possible. In our institution, SPSS is one of the common software we use for analyzing our data. Also, SPSS presents a very good tabular form. Also, it supports graphs, charts, etc. So reporting results. Here we say the results section of a paper is a complete report of your findings. Your findings on your research studies or experiments. So presenting your work can be very, very intimidating. So we always start with what you are most comfortable with, then expand from there. Most of the time when we are reading an article, we look at the abstract. We may go to the introduction section, and most importantly, we go to the results section. So results section of a paper is a very important part of a research paper, very important. We may have a demographic section. In demographic section here, we can begin the results section with the sample demographics. For example, we did a research on a particular population. In the results section, we can begin with the description of the population and what findings, what variables we are looking at. Example would be what is the exposures or the risk on this population or the sample, and what is the outcome, and what process, what analysis we did for us to be able to determine that the risk factors related to the outcome. Now, for example, let's say we are doing research on cigarette smoking can cause a lung cancer. So our goal is to find a relationship between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. First, we have to target a sample frame, or we can say a sample space. This will be a sample frame. In this case, will be the possible sample. In this case, we are doing cigarette smoking and lung cancer. So our sample surely will be participants that smokes against cigarette. We collect this data. How are we going to analyze this data? Are we going to use a regression, PSC correlation, if it's a quantitative, or are we going to use PMR correlation if it's a qualitative data we collected from the participants? Are we going to use hypothesis testing, or are we going to move on to data mining or machine learning algorithms such as classification, clustering, any type of again? So data analysis, again, we have so many techniques. But in the results section, our main goal, we describe our demographics. We should be very descriptive, detailed, and exact information by the demographics. Example will be the gender, race, ethnicity, age. It depends on the study we are doing. If this study we want to find a gender, an outcome, or some disease, and we want to know if this disease is based on gender, that you are male or female, it will be prompt, and then, or if it's a race issue, ethnicity, cigarette smoking, the behavior, etc. Now, don't ask your reader to do additional work or mathematics. Demographic information can provide a context for the findings. I think the most important here is we shouldn't let our readers to do the mathematics for us. So we have to be very descriptive about our demographics data. Now, describe the findings for the key variables. If I'm finding the relationship between cigarette smoking and lung cancer, in somewhere in the paper, I may explain what cigarette is about, the content of a cigarette, maybe the nicotine, the history of it, how it's produced. Somewhere in the paper section, I may explain what is a lung cancer, what lung cancer causes us, the problem behind it, the benefit or the disadvantage, etc., how it affects the body. In the results section, I'm not going to explain what is a lung cancer or what is a cigarette, but rather I'm going to describe the findings for these two variables, how they associate, they are related to each other. So in this case, we can do measures such as frequency, finding the average or percentage, or the correlation between those two variables. So first, we need to present information on the participants, then present findings that is related to the relationship between the two or more variables. Now we have two types of studies actually we have three types of studies. Here we're going to focus on the two because the third is the mixture of the two. Result in quantitative studies and also result in qualitative studies. Then result in the mixed studies. But here we're going to focus on two. We know quantitative studies is based on numerical data. We have most of the tests we do here is a parametric test, which means we have to consider the distribution of the data set, the values, the numerical form. Now in qualitative, the data is not numerical data. It can be a word or a text. So qualitative and quantitative studies, the result kind of same way, but there's a difference. So for example, in quantitative studies, we are going to present the information on whether variables are correlated, if we have found a correlation between two or more variables. Also, the strength and direction of the relationship between the variables, whether one variable decreases or increases as the result of increases of the other, or if there's no any relationship. just present the findings again in a direct manner. And that's why most of the time when we're reading a professional journals articles, most likely the pages will not be more than 6, sometimes 5, 4, even not more than 10. But if I'm reading a dissertation or a thesis, I may have over 100 pages. This is a report of every specific step, things that we did. But in a journal or presenting a paper in a conference, we always want to present the findings in a direct manner. So a best way also using tables and figures is the best way. Instead of trying to explain word by word each, we can just write the results in a table form or in a figure form. Also, we can use a chart. Now, if we reject a null hypothesis, this is for again qualitative studies. We should assume that the alternative hypothesis is a possibility. This again does not mean you have a unequivocal proof your alternative hypothesis. Now, when you fail to reject the null hypothesis, then you have built a new knowledge or potential identified new relationship. This is again still a contribution to science. Now, the results in qualitative studies, we can format similar to quantitative studies. So as we said earlier, the results will be the same in the same form. It can be in a tabular form, graph, etc. But the only thing we pay attention to is that in quantitative, we are dealing with numerical values, while in qualitative, we are dealing with a word or text, a nominal or ordinal values. For example, if I want to find a relationship between two variables and I have a quantitative data, I may do again PSC correlation, regression analysis. Here I'm using an equation, mathematical equation, because I'm dealing with values. Now, if I have a qualitative data, then I may use the Spearman correlation. The same concept, but in Spearman, actually we use the term rank. We put the data in a ranking form. So it's kind of like an ordinal data, 1, 2, 3 in a ranking form. Then we do our correlation. So the format, again, for qualitative study and quantitative studies are similar. Now, we should always start with an overview of the demographics, again, same concept, then point out the similarity and differences that we recognize during the analysis process. Now, we can also start with an outline to organize the results. We can use a tabular form, graph, figures, etc. Now, we can use quotation to add richness, and also diagrams and figures are also very powerful. So this is an example of using a diagram. We have a studies about a coronary triangle from feeding the city. This is in Mumbai style, India. So we can see how the data is the figure is formed in a triangular form, raw customers. The concept is in the triangle. The outcome, 2 options, rotten, city of Mumbai, or cooked, the Dabawa Las. Again, our goal here is not to understand what this study is about, but how they present it in more or less in a diagram form. So visually presenting results is very, very powerful, very strong. So visual presentation can help convey the meaning, also to show the dynamics and the details. That's why even in data analysis, we have so many software that is designed to visualize the result, even the process of data analysis and visualization form. Example would be the tabular application. Visualization, again, will grab our attention. Tables and figures are most widely used. Almost, I'm not particularly 100% sure, but most articles are read. At least 90%, almost any article you will see a table or a figure or a graph. So tables can also deliver a large amount of information, example, the demographics, and also to help save space in the text. Instead of presenting the result in a text form, sentences, we can present it in a tabular form. Also allow for comparisons across categories, showing the missing values. And tables, most important, it helps us to avoid repeating the same information. And also when we have the result in a tabular form, we shouldn't have it in a text form. It's like, again, repeating the same information. We should, in our institution, we always use the APA format. So utilize the APA set of rules and regulation for writing. Figures also are very good, as we said earlier, charts, graph and plots, and even path diagrams. Path diagrams are used a lot in project management assignment. So example, the model showing relationship between variables using arrows and connectors. Common figures. Now here we should ask ourselves this type of question when determining and what figures to use. Why am I selecting this figure? Is this figure useful in illustrating my point? Will an explanation in words work better? Well, if we think an explanation in words will work better, then we shouldn't use figures or tables. Is the figures a good representation of findings? Also, we should consider the stylistic guidelines. So this is an example of a path diagram. This type of diagrams is used a lot in project management and task. So in these studies, we have a parental monitoring. Parental monitoring, we go from there. This is a path, so we follow the arrow. From there, we go to cigarette use, what percentage or what value. And 0.11, 0.08 means something. So parental monitoring, we are going to monitor cigarette use of maybe minors or children, alcohol use, self-esteem. Based on these three attributes of the minors, we may determine their aggressive behavior. So maybe the higher cigarette smoking, the higher alcohol consumption, and the lower self-esteem of the case may increase the aggressive behavior of the case. Now, when I see this diagram, it takes me even less than 10 seconds to get the whole concept of the studies here. Now, if it's in a text or words, maybe to take me minutes to understand what is going on. So path diagram or diagrams in general are very useful. It shortens our paper, our research paper. We don't need to write too many. Just by looking at this diagram, I can understand the whole process of studies that's being done. Also, the ethical issues consideration. Almost every research, we even had a chapter for ethical issues in research. In every research, we need to consider that. That's why, again, we have the IRB for most research work. We need to sign that paper. So data can be easily misrepresented depending on how it is presented. Be careful not to, again, manipulate results to draw particular conclusion. This is, again, unethical and a form of deceiving or deception. Example is, we can have one graph. Just by changing the scale of the graph, we can change the pattern of the graph. Also, discussion is very important. Most of the time, some papers may have a results section before discussion and summary. Some papers the author may decide to have the discussion of the results or the discussion of the research work in general before the final result. But most people's papers will show result first before discussion. So discussion is the most creative part of the research report. We can present the interpretation of the result in the discussion. So that's why most papers will give you the result section. Then in the discussion section is where we explain the result, or we discuss the result in general. So we should start with the most important findings first. Then delineate the limitation in the discussion section. That is, in the limitation section, we should discuss how the study could be improved. Most of the papers I've read, or you may read, after results, discussion normally will talk about the future work that may improve the present work we just did. So most discussion will be a recommendation. So most graduate students can find a topic, a research topic, from an article recommendation of the authors. So recommendation findings from many studies can reveal several future directions. Present these future directions in a methodology section of the paper, which include recommendation on the methodology of a future studies or recommendation on topics to explore that's related to what the research is being done. So this will be our conclusion of chapter 13 of our course textbook. We have one more chapter left before the end of the semester, and we still have a week left before final exams. So again, wish everybody the best. If you have any question about these lectures, you can send an email, or you can also reach me in my private and my professional number. So thank you again.